Before the first word was spoken, there was the Word. Before the first heart ever beat, there was love. Before time itself learned to move forward, there was one who stands outside of time. 2,000 years ago, in a small province of a great empire, a child was born. His mother was a simple young woman. His adoptive father, a carpenter. They were poor. They were unknown. The child came into the world in a stable. By any measure, an unremarkable story. Yet this child changed everything. Today, more than 2 billion people know his name. His teaching reshaped ethics, art, law, and the very foundation of civilization. But before we arrive at that stable, we need to ask a question that is rarely asked at the very beginning. Why? Why would God enter the world He created? Why would the infinite choose to become finite? Why would the all-powerful accept helplessness? The answer to that question is this entire story. And to tell it properly, we cannot begin in Bethlehem. We must begin where there was no time, no space, no matter. Where there was only one thing, love. When we speak about God, we immediately run into a problem of language. Every word we use was invented by human beings to describe things we can see, hear, and touch. But God, by definition, exists beyond all of that. The Christian tradition describes Him this way. He exists eternally. Not for a very long time, but entirely outside the category of time itself. For Him there is no past, no future, only an eternal present. He occupies no space. He needs nothing. He depends on nothing and no one. But here is what makes the Christian understanding of God truly unique among all the world's religions. He is not alone. God is a Trinity, 3 persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Not 3 gods. One being with 3 persons, existing in perfect eternal unity of love. That sounds like a mathematical error. But theologians explain it this way. The Trinity is not mathematics. It is a description of the very nature of being itself. Think about love, real love. It always requires at least 2. If God is love by nature, and that is precisely what the Apostle John declares, then He could never have been alone. The love within the Trinity existed before anything else was ever created. The Father loves the Son. The Son loves the Father. The Holy Spirit is, in a sense, the living movement of that love between them, personal, alive, inexhaustible. And here is what matters. They needed nothing else. They were complete. So why create at all? Not out of boredom, not out of loneliness, but because love, by its very nature, overflows. It wants to give itself away. Just as light cannot help but shine, God could not help but create. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Behind those simple words lies one of the deepest truths about reality. Everything that exists because God willed it to exist. Not by accident, by design. Each day of creation ended with the same words. And God saw that it was good, not sufficient, not acceptable, good. And on the 6th day, mankind, the only creature described in particular terms, let us make man in our image, a being capable of love, capable of responding to love, capable of entering into a real, deep, mutual relationship with God Himself. But there was one possibility God built into that relationship, the possibility of refusal. He gave humanity freedom, real, complete, and dangerous. In the center of the garden stood a tree, a boundary that said, "You are not God, I am God." Then came the tempter. One question. Did God really say? 4 words. A seed of doubt, and in that moment, something broke. Not merely a rule that was violated, but a relationship that was severed. The very bond for which everything had been made. A gulf between a holy God and a sinful humanity. A gulf that no human being could cross on their own. God did not walk away. That, perhaps, is the most astonishing thing about this story. After the fall, he did not turn his back. He began a long, patient, century-spanning conversation. Already in the garden, in the very first word spoken after the fall, the first promise is made. Theologians call it the proto-evangelium, the first gospel, still veiled, still encoded, but already there. The seed of the woman will crush the enemy. Then came Abraham, to whom God promised, through your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed, all of them, not one people, every people. Then Moses, the Passover lamb, the blood on the doorposts. Then David, whose Psalms described crucifixion 1,000 years before it was invented. Then Isaiah, who wrote about the suffering servant with the precision of an eyewitness. More than 300 messianic prophecies, written by different authors in different centuries, in different literary forms, all of them pointing to one person. God was writing letters, through prophets, through history, through law, over and over again, about the one who was coming. The Apostle Peter wrote of Christ as one chosen before the creation of the world. This was not a backup plan, not a reaction to a crisis. The incarnation of the Son of God was purpose before the human being he came to save even existed. Theologians call it kenosis, a voluntary self-emptying. The second person of the Trinity willingly accepted the limitations of human nature. He did not cease to be God, but he became also fully human, with hunger and exhaustion, with pain and tears, with the helplessness of a newborn child. Consider for a moment what that means. The one to whom infinity belongs agrees to enter a single point in time. The one who holds the universe together agrees to be born in a stable. The decision was made there in eternity, and one stream of the Trinity's light began its descent. Rome, the end of the 1st century before Christ, the most powerful empire the world had ever known. Its roads connected Britain to Mesopotamia. Its armies were undefeated. Augustus Caesar ruled as a god. Literally, divine honors were paid to him across the empire. On the far eastern edge of that empire lay a small province, Judea, strategically important, sitting at the crossroads of trade routes between Egypt, Syria, and Arabia, but politically a constant headache for Rome. The Jewish people refused to worship Roman gods. They had one God, invisible, without image, too vast for any temple human hands could build. The king of Judea at this time was Herod, called the Great, and he was great as a builder, as a politician, as a survivor. He rebuilt the Jerusalem temple into something of breathtaking grandeur. But he also executed his own sons, suspecting them of plotting against him. The common people lived in poverty. The Pharisees debated the law. The zealots sharpened their blades and dreamed of revolt. Everyone was waiting for something, a Messiah, a liberator, a king. But no one at all anticipated what actually happened, because God never does what people expect. In the small town of Nazareth lived a young woman named Miriam, ordinary, unknown, but it was to her, on a quiet evening, that a messenger from heaven was now moving. And when a soft, unearthly light appeared in the corner of her room, the history of the world turned.